Descent 3rd Edition. The natural question, of course, look at that box. Just what is packed in that box? And this is building on a question from last week that I posted up to my vlog archive here. The idea that Gloomhaven, Gloomy 1, Jaws, and soon to be Gloomy 2 is dominating the dungeon crawling scene. And the amount of content that has been packed into Gloomhaven, no expansions, just core, is amazing. A great analogy would be back in the day when you actually had to pay for a data plan. And if you went over that data plan, there was no warning, and it bankrupted you with your cell phone going mobile. And at some point, somewhere, some company offered free data. As soon as that happened, the bar was raised, and now free data is everywhere. So there's this interesting duality with Gloomhaven offering so much amazing content for about, more or less, sometimes on sale, $100 USD. That's crazy. That's really, really raising the bar, and Gloomy 2 is taking that even further. We joke around with Fantasy Flight, but it's a little bit true, and I enjoy many of their titles. I enjoy Descent. I have Descent 1st and 2nd Edition in my collection. I love Runebound. Production quality is fantastic. The artwork is good. The quality of the cards and the cardboard is excellent. One could say that they love their tokens and conditions and effects, but certainly a quality product, very, very sturdy, good print run. But there's nothing ever in the box. The inserts just take up so much space. The actual physical product is physically very, very small. Open up Gloomhaven, and it's just bursting out of the scenes. So I feel like there is this pressure where if Descent 2nd Edition, making the jump from 2nd to 3rd, if Descent is going to regain that prominence, Fantasy Flight has to step it up. Another great analogy a few years back, Warhammer 40,000, an amazing sci-fi game that I enjoy, produced by Games Workshop. They kind of took it for granted that they were number one. And you would see the top 5 games, number one, war games, miniature games, was 40K, Warhammer 40,000. X-Wing Miniatures suddenly appears on the scene. 3 years later, X-Wing is number one. Games Workshop had to step things up massively with the releases, with the product, with tie-ins to regain that market share. And this isn't even taking into account with Descent 3rd Edition, Gloomhaven, that paradigm, the pressure from Kickstarters. So just what can we expect in that box? I think the biggest thing right now in miniature board gaming, especially with dungeon crawlers, the bar that has been raised, if Fantasy Flight wants to literally stay ahead of that curve, miniature size has gone through the roof. I mean, jump back a few years. You got a couple of miniatures for your board game. You were all set. The rest was tokens. You had some monsters. It was a set amount. And then when Zombicide breaks out and that kicks off various Kickstarters, look at something like Massive Darkness, another crawler that I really love. Massive amounts of miniatures. So now it's become standard to have massive amounts of miniatures. And you look at the core of Descent 2nd Edition, which, again, I love. It's trapped in production time of almost, at this point, 8-9 years ago. There's not a lot of miniatures packed into that box. So that needs to be raised. The other thing, and this is what I think is going to be in the box, I think we're going to have a lot of map tiles. I think, of course, we're going to have a lot of tokens. But what miniature games need now to draw in that market, big boss monsters, epic scale miniatures. It's not enough just to have your 5 heroes and the minions and the lieutenants and a couple of boss monsters. Those boss monsters need to be massive in size. So I expect the end game bosses 3 or 4 in size and one really, really massive. I'm taking inspiration. I know it's very boutique, but look at something like Kingdom Death Monster, where the monsters that you're going to hunt, the endgame monsters, the miniatures are massive. Look at something like Dark Souls, the mega bosses. Those miniatures are massive. This is now becoming kind of standard. So as Descent 3rd Edition deploys out, and I expect it to have an app, and I expect it to have tie-ins, and I expect it to have a decent amount of miniatures and cardboard production quality. I expect the rules to be updated. It's polishing an effective system as it is. But I'm betting in that box there's going to be some really, really epic and big miniatures. Maybe 2 or 3 oversized miniatures and one massive, massive miniature.